Okay, well, good morning, everyone. Glad you could join us on this Thursday morning. Have a few updates for you today, but we do have a special guest speaker, one that's been on a few of our previous calls, our Small Business Development Center consultant, Cheryl Peterson. I'm going to continue to sing her praises and the SBDC's praises. They have done great work for businesses in Shiawassee County over these last several months, providing lots of great consultation, particularly on some very technical questions that many of you have had related to things like funding and other issues. So very grateful for the partnership we have with Cheryl and everything she does to support our companies and entrepreneurs here in Shiawassee County. I asked Cheryl to come on today. She was on a couple of weeks ago to give an update on PPP loan forgiveness. I wanted to have her on again because I know things change, things get updated, and I think what's also relevant too is 5 days from now, the application window for PPP for new loans ends. So if anyone is still left out there, that deadline is next week. So I think that's an important milestone. The other thing that's changed as well, since Cheryl was on a couple weeks ago, is the EIDL program through the Small Business Administration has come back online. And I'll let Cheryl talk more about that. But we're hearing more and more companies are jumping on the EIDL opportunity. So wanted to have Cheryl join us and provide any news, any updates you would like to share in regards to both of those programs. And then certainly, Cheryl, if there's anything else you want to add, feel free to do so as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Cheryl Peterson, our Small Business Development Center consultant. Cheryl.
Thank you very much, Justin. I appreciate that. And good morning, everyone. It's good to be back with you again for a few minutes to talk about some of these funding opportunities and revisions. If you were with us a few weeks ago, the early part of June, we talked about some of the changes that came about in the PPP program, and I have just a little update on some additional changes. You know that the 8-week covered period was stretched to 24 weeks, and that the repayment period of 2 years was stretched to 5 years. Now, that is for loans that occurred after June 5th. If your loan occurred prior to June 5th, you can also take advantage of the extended coverage period and the extended repayment term as long as you have your lender's agreement. And that specific language is in the now written rules. So if you got your PPP money prior to June 5th, it would be appropriate for you to reach out to your lender, make sure that you and the lender are in agreement that you want to move to the 24-week covered period and you want the term of the loan extended from 2 years to 5 years. Just make sure that there's common agreement to that. In the previous rules, you will also recall that at least 75% of the loan proceeds had to be spent on payroll costs. And when we were on the previous call, we shared that that was being changed to 60% had to be at least spent on payroll costs. But it was designed at that point to be a cliff, that if you did not spend 60% on payroll costs, you would not get any loan forgiveness. That has changed. And it is as it was previously, you must spend at least 60% of the loan proceeds on payroll costs. And if you don't, there would be a reduced forgiveness, but it would not be an exclusion of any forgiveness. So that has changed since June 5th. The lender has 60 days to evaluate your loan forgiveness application once they deem the application is complete. They have 60 days to provide a recommendation to the SBA on the forgiveness that they are recommending on your loan. The SBA then has 90 days within which to respond to the bank's recommendations. So when you're thinking, how long is this process going to take, that gives you some idea as to the length of time for this to be wrapped up. Now, there's a couple of other dates and timelines that are important in forgiveness. If you have utilized all of your PPP funds, you do not need to wait until the end of your covered period in order to file for your forgiveness. So you can file before the covered period ends if you have depleted all of the funds. But on the flip side of that, if a business owner has not applied for forgiveness within 10 months of the last day of the covered period, they will no longer be eligible for a deferral and they will need to begin payments at that time. So those are a couple new time periods to just be aware of as you're thinking about the timing of your forgiveness application. There are some new phrases and some new language in the revised forms for forgiveness. So I would encourage you to take a close look at that. Some of that language relates to words like incurred versus paid, the 75 days versus the 60 days. So just read through those applications for forgiveness carefully and be attuned to where some of those phrases or the language has changed. There is now an option for a easy forgiveness form. So the traditional form that has been published from the beginning is SBA Form 3508, but there is now an abbreviated form, 3508EZ. And it gives borrowers a shortened process for applying for forgiveness. And you can use this form, the EZ form, if you can answer yes to one of three groups of questions. So the first question is, the borrower is a self-employed individual, independent contractor, or sole proprietor who had no employees at the time of the PPP application and did not include employee salaries in the computation of monthly payroll. So that's one certification statement. The second one would be that the borrower did not reduce any annual salary or hourly wages by more than 25%, and that the borrower did not reduce the number of employees or average paid hours of employees between January 1 and the end of the covered period. So that's an and. You have to be able to certify to both of those statements about reduction in payroll and reduction in number of employees and average paid hours. And then the third category is the borrower did not reduce the annual salary or hourly wages by more than 25% of any employee, and the borrower was unable to operate during the covered period at the same level of business activity as before February 15th, 2020, due to compliance requirements from governmental mandates, Center for Disease Control, OSHA, etc., related to sanitation, social distancing, and other customer safety or employee safety requirements related to COVID. So again, there's three categories here. One is for the self-employed, the independent contractor, the sole proprietor. One relates to the reduction of wages by more than 25% and maintaining of FTEs. And the third relates to wages and an inability to operate at your pre-COVID levels. So any business owner that can attest to one of those three is eligible to use the 3508 EZ for your forgiveness application. I know that that's a lot of information to read to you. That is available online. If you can't find it, you can reach out to me and I would be happy to send it to you so that you can read it in detail yourself. A couple of other things that relate to this forgiveness for PPP is exemption to the restoration of full-time equivalents or the restoration of salary and hourly wages. There is an exemption for the business owner who offered to bring an employee back. The employee declined and did not come back to work. There needs to be documentation of the offer to return to work, documentation of the refusal to return to work, and a notification of the unemployment agency that that individual opted not to return to work. There's also an exemption for the business owner who has been unable to hire replacement employees that are appropriately skilled for the positions that are needed. And lastly, there is an exemption for the business owner, and we already described this, who encountered an inability to return to the same level of business compared to February 15th due to governmental mandates and restrictions around COVID. So know that those exemptions are out there if your business has incurred any of the three of those. So those are the new things related to PPP at this point in time, and we'll continue to update you as that continues to evolve. I would also like to move on and talk a little bit about EIDL. As Justin said, the EIDL opportunity has reopened a couple of weeks ago. What I'm finding this time, that people that are applying for EIDL, the turnaround time is much less. And earlier this morning, an individual called me. He had been working on his EIDL application on Monday of this week. And this morning, he has his loan advance in his business checking account. And he has an email from the SBA telling him what loan offer they are making to him. So there's much quicker turnaround time now than what borrowers that were applying early on were experiencing. Just to refresh everyone's memory, there is a loan advance associated with an EIDL application that can be up to $10,000. That loan advance is based on $1,000 per employee, maxing out at $10,000. That loan advance is forgivable and does not have to be paid back. The second part of an EIDL application is a loan offer that is made by the SBA to the borrower. Within the loan document, the borrower would have the option of reducing the amount of the loan offer. And there is typically a threshold and a cap on the loan amount. The cap is the amount that the SBA would offer, but the business owner can choose to opt for something less should they choose to do that. Now, we've had several questions in the last couple of weeks since EIDL has reopened about the use of funds. And so I got clarification from my contact at the SBA related to the use of EIDL funds for paying debt. So long-term debt, such as a mortgage, could not be paid in full. So in other words, you could not pay off your mortgage or liquidate your mortgage using the EIDL funds. You could not use EIDL funds to refinance an existing loan. However, you can use EIDL funds to pay monthly principal and interest on a mortgage or on any debt. On the other hand, short-term debt, like a short-term line of credit, could be paid down with EIDL loans. funding or credit card payments, again, intended to be defined as short-term debt with a principal and interest that are not defined longer than 12 months. That would be the definition of short-term debt for credit cards. Those credit cards could also be paid down with idle funds. So we wanted to clarify that. There have been a lot of questions from borrowers related to the use of idle funds in that regard. So hopefully that is helpful information for you. And then the last thing that I want to share is something that's going on at the state level. There's action within the state legislature to create the Michigan Business Relief Grant 2.0. And you will remember back at the very beginning of the pandemic, there were some grant funds and loan funds through the Michigan Small Business Relief Program that were available across our state. So there looks like there's going to be a second addition to this. What we know currently is that we expect these will be grants up to $20,000. They will include the usual purposes of funds like rent, mortgage payments, utility payments, etc. But it will also include costs of reopening. Now that's not been defined yet, but I could envision that to include training. It could envision that to include PPE equipment that you need for your business. There are a couple of qualifications that we have heard about related to this program. One is that it would be open to businesses with 50 employees or less, and it would not be open to any business that received a grant in the previous round of grant making for the original Michigan Small Business Relief Grant. Now, there's a lot more to come on this. First of all, it has to be approved by the governor. Secondly, there will be details about how to apply. I'm sure there will be more criteria that will be offered up, and so more information will be coming. But I wanted you to be aware that this has been acted upon by the legislature and will probably be announced with details over the next few weeks. And we'll certainly be keeping you apprised of that progress. I'd be glad to take any questions on PPP, on EIDL, or on this new version with what little information we do know of the Michigan Business Relief Grant 2.0.
Cheryl, thank you. As always, a very detailed and informational update. Great information to use. I do want to open it up. I do have an update on that small business relief program through the state. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But for now, I do want to open it up to anybody on the call. If you have questions or comments regarding anything Cheryl said, please hit *6 on your phone, please. *6. Anybody have anything?
I do. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, this is Amy from SLH Metals. I'm kind of sitting in for Mike today. I am looking at the 3508 Easy form, and I'm noticing under potential forgiveness amounts, they want you to add all of your payroll and non-payroll costs. Then they want you to list your PPP loan amount, and then they want you to list your payroll cost 60% requirement. But then underneath that, the last line says forgiveness amount, and it says the forgiveness amount is the smallest of lines 5, 6, and 7. I'm a little confused because obviously your payroll cost 60% requirement is going to be the smallest of those 3 lines. So I'm kind of confused on this form what they're really trying to drive at here for the forgiveness amount. I was under the impression that if our whole loan went to payroll costs, the whole loan could be forgiven. Am I correct on that?
Yes, that is my understanding. that you must use at least 60% for payroll costs, but that doesn't mean that you couldn't use more. So if it would work for you, rather than trying to work through all these numbers here on this call, I would be happy to talk with you offline, and we could work through this in more detail as it applies directly to your business.
Okay. I was just, my question was pretty much just the accuracy of this form. I'm just wondering if something may not be correct on this form with that line 8 forgiveness amount.
Okay.
I would love to reach out with you later and discuss that.
Okay, so let me get a look at where you are referencing on the forms. I have it here in front of me, but then maybe we can set up a time to talk together about it specifically.
Okay.
Cheryl?
Yeah.
Cheryl, this is Randy Beatty at SACOR. I looked at the form a little while ago, and what I see is that there's some place with the payroll amount that you're dividing by 0.4 or 0.6, I believe. It boost that number back up. You multiply the payroll by or divide it by a factor that increases that number up to as much as the loan or above.
Okay. So I'm looking at the form wrong. Payroll cost 60% requirement. Divide line 1 by 0.6. So I'd be dividing the payroll costs by 0.6.
And that'll push it up as high as the loan.
Okay. All right. I was reading that wrong. Okay. My bad. Sorry.
That's okay. All right.
And Amy, I did connect you and Cheryl just now by email. If you do have any follow-up questions for Cheryl, you're connected that way now.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And thank you, Randy. Any other comments or questions for Cheryl? Hit *6 on your phone.
Hi, this is John from AHP. I just got a question about the EIDL loan. If you got it in the first round, I assume you can't get it in the second round?
That is my understanding, that you're eligible for one, but not a repeat.
Okay, thank you.
This is Rich.
Thanks, John.
This is Rich
go ahead,
Doherty. We applied for an EIDL grant/loan, sent it in in May, so it was later, so we didn't get it in the first round. We haven't received anything or any notice at this point. Should we apply again?
Do you have a loan number from your application in May?
I'd have to look. I think so.
All right. If you have a loan number, I would suggest starting with either an email to customer service at SBA or to their 800 number and talk with someone about the status of that application. In May, depending upon exactly the date that you sent that, EIDL may not have been open at that time for small businesses. So they may advise you to reapply, but the first thing I would do is check on the status of what you have already submitted.
Okay.
But in order to do that, you will need to have your loan number. So pull up your loan number and then either reach out to the 800 number or to customer service at SBA.
If we don't have a loan number, then we should reapply?
I would say yes, although honestly, I would still make the call to the 800 number first.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Rich. Appreciate that. And this program, other than I think ag businesses, was not formally open or has not been formally open since definitely April, maybe late March. So I do wonder, I've heard that from a couple people, Cheryl, that if someone tried to apply in the window where it wasn't open, then it's maybe lost out there somewhere. So
I have I have had some feedback from people who did apply and received a rejection because they were not an agricultural business. But when you have not had any response, I think the appropriate step would be to contact SBA either through the 800 number or the customer service email to know where that application is at, which would give you an indication of whether you should reapply at this point in time.
Very good. Other comments or questions for Cheryl on anything she discussed?
Hi, Cheryl. This is Colleen Stowell.
Hi.
I have a question for the EIDL. We applied this round and got the advance on it already. I read somewhere that said if you just want the grant, you can turn down the loan.
That is true.
But I don't know how that works.
Okay. If you just want to keep the forgivable loan advance, then when you receive your loan offer from SBA, you can do one of two things. You can either reach out to them at that 800 number or the customer service email that I was just talking about and share with them that you are declining the loan, or you can simply wait and allow the idle loan offer to expire, because there will be a deadline by which you need to respond with the signed loan agreement. And if you choose not to take the loan, you can do nothing and allow that expiration date to come and go, and that will expire your loan offer.
How do you account for the grant money? Do you have to include it with the business income then?
Yes, I believe that you will have to claim that as income. Now, I haven't seen any written guidelines on this yet, but I would anticipate it's going to be like the PPP that you will have to claim that as income. But Colleen, I guess I would want to do a little more research on that question before I gave you a definite answer. I will reach out to my SBA contact on that, and then I will send you an email.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Colleen. Other comments or questions for Cheryl? Star 6 on your phone.
Justin, this is John. I just wanted to make a comment on the forgivable portion of the PPP. Now, that's includable in income, but the IRS's written regulations that will not be included in your business income. But unfortunately, since it's tax-free money, you won't be able to take the expenses for it. So that's something that the AICPA is trying to fight. And I just want to make you aware of that. Like, you do include it in your income, like say in a business sense, but then you kind of back it out. So the forgivable portion of the PPP is not technically included in income, but the EIDL grant, I believe that just gets included in income.
Thanks, John. And actually, and I want to thank John from AHP. He's been great about jumping on these calls for the last few months. John, would you be interested in coming on our call next Tuesday morning and maybe giving a more in-depth update on tax implications for all this stuff?
Yeah, I can do that. There's certainly been some changes in the CARES Act and the Flexibility Act, and I'd love to do that, Justin.
All right. Tuesday morning it is. Okay. Any other comments or questions from anybody?
Justin, I just have a suggestion for John as well. And I know we're a ways from the end of tax season, but for those people who did not obtain a PPP loan, there's the potential for some tax credit. And again, while we're quite a ways away from tax season, it might be good just to give some basic information about that so that people can begin to think about how that might play into their total tax picture and what they need to consider.
Good point, Cheryl. John, I know you can talk about some of that on Tuesday. Any other comments or questions for Cheryl? Okay. Well, Cheryl, once again, thank you. Always a robust discussion when you're on. Great questions today. You certainly have an open invitation to be on these. If you have any updates in the coming weeks, just please let me know, and I'll be sure to get you back on the agenda. So thank you, Cheryl Peterson, Small Business Development Center, for not only today, but everything else you've done to help our businesses here in Shiawassee County.
Thanks, Justin.
Thank you. I do want to comment, and he won't be on today. I was just texting him. He won't be on today, but next Tuesday, I'm also going to have Tyler DeBrabander, our Michigan Economic Development Corporation representative, join us to give an update on several MEDC programs, but specifically to Cheryl's point, this small business relief program. So as she explained well, this was the one in early April that we were able to get $91,000 out to 23 businesses in Shiawassee County. It certainly was a Band-Aid at the time, though I know it did help those businesses immensely. Obviously, we just, as I said, did not have a lot of money. 91,000 did not go very far. But this, as Cheryl said, is supposed to be very similar. And my understanding, and I don't know if you mentioned this, Cheryl, my understanding, this pot of money is going to be $100 million statewide. So the last grant program was $10 million statewide. So I don't want to promise it today, but if the ratios hold, that might mean instead of $91,000 for Shiawassee County businesses, we could be looking at $900,000 plus for Shiawassee County businesses for that. So obviously that could be much more impactful. As Cheryl said, if the max is $20,000, as we know, many of you on the call, you're still being impacted. You may be operating, but you're not back up to full speed yet. And $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 could be very helpful to continue carrying you for some time. So we are closely monitoring it. Tyler has let me know, because if you remember, that program did run through the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. Tyler has let me know he will have much more information next Tuesday. So we will have Tyler on the call too to give you all an update on that. So definitely hopeful that we will be able to get some more grant dollars into Shiawassee County. So, and I do want to make a couple of comments on other MEDC programs. I've sent out by email information on a webinar they're having later this afternoon, which looks kind of interesting. It's how companies have pivoted and diversified during this time into new sectors, into new opportunities related to the virus, some innovative concepts, things like that. So I think that's at 4 o'clock today. Like I said, I sent you an email on that. There is some information I also shared on some of their trade resources. We've had Jacob Schrader from their office on a call probably a month, maybe 2 months ago, regarding some grants they have for exporting. As I said, I emailed that out to all of you. If any of you are in international or want to start selling internationally, let us know. We would be happy to connect you to those resources. I'm also sending out an email today. It's a new program, a new offering. They have some B2B type stuff, I believe, as it relates to the automotive industry in terms of being able to sell. So like a virtual thing. So I'll send out information on that. Very grateful for our partnership, obviously, with our state friends. A new thing that I wanted to bring up, we've talked about the issue in the past, but one thing we want to reapproach on going forward is the issue of child care. So we've had Kara Agnew from Great Start on to talk about some of the things that are happening countywide in regards to child care, but the fundamental issue still remains, quite honestly, virus or not, we do not have enough of available, affordable childcare in Shiawassee County, and it creates a big challenge for our employers in terms of trying to be able to attract and retain workers because of that. So I just wanted to alert you all. We were working on this a little bit before the virus hit. Some of you attended a summit we had. It was over the winter about how do we deal with this. It's something we want to reapproach on. We want employer involvement in that. We certainly want to partner with our school districts. We want to partner with the Y on that. I know Laura Burrows is very interested in that, and some chamber, several partners. So we're going to be talking more about that, but just wanted to put that on your radar screen. And then just a couple more things. As always, if anyone needs testing, Memorial Healthcare offers that, virus and antibody, PPE equipment and services for safely reopening. I mentioned this on the call the other day. Also next Tuesday, we're going to have Cindy Sanders from Servpro. She's going to jump on. They are offering building cleaning services, disinfecting, things like that. So any of you that want to have your building deep cleaned, please join us Tuesday to meet her. And of course, jobs. Anyone looking to hire, let us know. The last thing I want to leave you with, and I teased this a little bit earlier, based on a few things, but really predominantly the continued reopening of the economy and more people getting back to work and getting back into the swing of things. We had a conversation earlier this week about moving our daily call to a once-a-week call. So, as you know, we were daily for several months, 2 months, 2.5 months. We moved to a Tuesday, Thursday, which we've been on now for a few weeks. But based on turnout, based on what we're hearing from stakeholders, rather than spread it out and maybe have a little bit each day, have one call a week, even easier to plan for, even less commitment of time, but making that call meatier with more speakers and more information. And we're looking at making that on Tuesdays at 9. So don't want to start the week on a Monday with it because, it's a Monday morning. We know how that goes. But if we have a Tuesday morning, early in the week, give you information, updates on what's happening, programs, resources, all that, and then that'll help carry you through the rest of the week. So we want to start that next week. Certainly, you all know this, if you need anything in the meantime, you can get a hold of us. But we feel like that's going to be the best, most efficient use of everyone's time going forward. So if anyone has any concerns on that, let us know, but plan on starting next week a once-a-week call at 9 a.m. on Tuesday. So with that, if anyone has any quick items, let me know. Otherwise, we will talk to you on Tuesday. So anyone have anything for a last-minute question? Okay. Thank you, everybody. We'll talk to you Tuesday.
Thanks, Justin. Thanks, Cheryl.